This quick little video, I want to talk about branding. I think a lot of times we don't talk about branding enough, and obviously in this channel, I focus a lot on lead generation and productivity and things that make us kind of better marketers. And branding sort of seems to always feel like it sits on the shelf that belongs to like Nike and Coca-Cola and those sorts of things. And if you were kind of classically trained in marketing, you got a marketing degree or whatever, you probably spent a lot of time on branding, but not sort of in a practical way that's easy to apply. So today I want to break branding down as simple as possible to make branding simple for you. So let's break down 5 simple ways to get your branding in a line and effective, particularly in lead generation. If you're trying to generate leads, you're putting out content, you're trying to attract attention and sort of build trust and credibility, you're going to need multiple impressions. And that is going to be enforced by branding. If you don't have a consistent brand, then we're going to talk about what that means. Those impressions, or when people encounter you, are not going to stack up and create the amount of impressions that you're ultimately going to need in order for that frequency builds trust mantra that I always proclaim to sort of take effect, because you do need to stack those impressions, and brands make it easy for just a bystander, somebody flipping through their feed, somebody reading content, to apply that particular impression to your brand and become more familiar and then ultimately more trusting. Okay, let's jump into it. Number 1 is creating a positioning statement. This I list number 1 because I think it is the most often overlooked. When we think about branding, we usually go straight to a logo. We think about the Nike swoosh and those sorts of things, the Coca-Cola brand, the red, and sort of the way that the font is done. And so we think about those type of things as branding, but it all starts with positioning. And this is ultimately going to have the biggest impact. So what is a positioning statement? Well, as you go through kind of this working through your positioning or coming up with a positioning statement, this is what I want you to work through. First, think about your audience. This is, who do you serve best? And you want to be specific. If you're already kind of in the market, then you can simply kind of look through your portfolio, look through your sales pipeline, look through your customers, and try to sort of look for the patterns and figure out what that persona, that avatar looks like. Who do you serve the best? Who are the best clients? Who do you resonate the most with? Who do you build the deepest relationships? Really understand who you serve best. And then what service or product do you deliver that tends to be the most valuable or transformational? Even if you're kind of a single product or service kind of provider, you probably do have some nuances in the way that you sort of deliver that product or the way that you deliver that service that has, again, some nuance across customers. You really want to figure out, like, what is that perfect combination? What does that perfect delivery look like? And again, sometimes it has to do a little bit with the customer and a little bit with you and the approach. But think about, again, the audience. Who do you serve best, and how do you best deliver the product that gives them a sense of value and is ultimately transformational to them? Also, think about the problems and the solution. So in the context of serving that audience, what are some specific challenges that you're best positioned to solve? And why is that problem significant? Is it something that happens all the time? Is it just sort of a problem that occurs under certain circumstances or scenarios? Really think through that problem and solution context and environment so that you better understand it as you start to build this positioning. And then what is your unique benefit? What makes your solution or your approach a little bit different from the competition? Are you maybe more knowledgeable about their business, their industry? Do you have a particular feature that sets you apart? Or are you just more customer focused maybe than others and have a slightly different, more white glove approach to delivering your service? So think about what are those unique benefits. And just a little bit of a thought provoker here is oftentimes your value proposition. This is why it's always good to get insights from customers and talk to them. oftentimes your value proposition is not maybe what you think about. Like, for instance, I was having a conversation with a service provider for me recently, and we were talking about kind of the product, and I said, yeah, your product is great and the service that you provide me is excellent, but one of the things I value most from your service is it creates accountability on me. And so sometimes you have these unusual, unique benefits that maybe you overlook. And then, of course, you want to prove out the claim. So this can be hard sometimes. Maybe you don't have testimonials, but you want to be able to demonstrate it one way or another. Oftentimes, this may be just outlining a use case, or, of course, if you have testimonials or you can get folks to vouch for you, that's always the strongest form to prove those claims. Sometimes you're actually delivering products out into the wild and you can just simply point to it and say, I was responsible for that, and that can be powerful. And then as you're building this positioning statement, I'm going to give you a specific way to sort of write it out, so you have kind of a fill in the blanks sort of word replacement sort of approach to this. But you want to come down to, what is that single memorable idea? What is the one word or idea you want to own in the market? Avoid trying to say or be everything or get overly complicated. And this particular statement formula can get a little bit overcomplicated, but I think it's a useful place to start. Ultimately, it would be great if you could boil it down to just one particular thing that defines what you are. But so this formula, which is not new to me or anything unique, is a great place to sort of start that sort of word replacement and see if you can build something quickly, and then from there refine. So here's the statement or the algorithm to create a positioning statement. So then you want to list your target audience. That's the refinement of that audience. Who is that audience? Who is that persona? For target audience, what is their problem? So state the problem as concisely as possible. Brand, that's you, is the category, that unique benefit, because, and the reason to believe, right? So you're thinking through, what is your audience? What is the problem you solve? You are the brand, right, that you're trying to define, and you serve this particular category with this unique benefit, and then because this is your proof claim, right? So for instance, let's kind of get a practical example of this. I pick out mortgage industry, which is an industry I serve, and is very commoditized. The products are mortgages and mortgages and mortgages, so it's really hard to differentiate. So this might be something that you could use as a positioning statement. Also keep in mind, it doesn't have to be always the positioning statement for the entire brand. It could be a subset of a product or service that you're trying to position in the market with a definable brand. So here's the example of this. For first-time home buyers struggling with affordability, ABC Mortgage is the lender that helps them secure lower monthly payments without PMI. That's mortgage insurance, because of our innovative piggyback HELOC solution. So that can be really sort of a clear value proposition and positioning in the market that sets you apart from just someone who's going to get you that first mortgage, right? Okay, so let's go into number two. Number two is a little more obvious, and we're talking about picking some colors. So when we're picking colors, the first thing you want to do is you want to sort of select a palette, obviously that's visually appealing or stands out, but you also want to consider things like ADA, Americans Disability Act compliance. I'll talk about this a little bit. Don't discard this. It's just thinking, wow, that's, we don't have to kind of worry about that. Actually, a lot of the standards that are in ADA compliance actually make that brand better, right? It makes it easier to read. It makes it stand out more. It makes it, again, a lot of these are just design best practices. So I implore you not to just sort of discard ADA compliance. Plus, there is significant legal risk around not complying with that. And then you want to be consistent with your brand's tone. So how do we step through this, right? We're going to use a tool, and I'll link to this, WebAIM Contrast Checker. So this helps with accessibility. And then keep it simple, 2 to 3 primary colors. We don't have to go out into weird spectrum or anything like that. And just kind of think about it. Also think about like how these colors, are there certain things that they reflect, right? Blue is trust, and orange is a little more energy to it, but maybe potentially think about breaking some of those rules, right? Because like for instance, again, using mortgage example, it seems like every mortgage brand is blue, right? But you can have industry sort of leaders and definers like Rocket that have chosen red and black and white, and right. So feel free to sort of break the rules, but know that you're doing it intentionally. And then you want to pick one or two secondary colors just to accent certain things. And then, of course, you want to ultimately note the hex codes so that you can apply that consistently in a couple different places, as I will kind of talk about here in a second. The next component is a font. Again, stick to simplicity, maybe a font for the sort of header text and then font for the rest of the body, a maximum of 2. But a lot of times you can find a font family that will sort of account for both of those and just be able to use a single font. It's really important that it be readable, don't get flowery or fancy. Again, potentially, if you are going to do the font pair, use some tools and pull from Google Fonts so that they're accessible and that they are kind of correctly matched. Google Fonts, you can Google search that, is a really great set of tools there to find you a couple different fonts or a font family, so you can go through there and make sure that it's easy to use. You can pull it into Google Docs, you can pull it into PowerPoint slides, and it's sort of natively on your computer. You don't want to pick something that you have to pay for or you have to install, because that can get complex. And then, of course, test it in a few different documents and across platforms. Use it on your website, use it in social media, use it inside of a Word doc, inside of a PowerPoint presentation, and just kind of see how all that plays out. So choose your font. Number 4, this one's a little bit more difficult. You have to pull in a designer, or you can use something like 99 Designs. I think ultimately you want to mature from that, but it's somewhere to get started, and we're talking about simplicity here. So again, we want to think about simplicity. We don't want to get too complex. Again, too much detail in there. We want to be able to use this across a bunch of different platforms. So it should be very simple. It should look fine in black and white and not lose sort of its brand obviousness. And then maybe to get started, you kind of sketch a couple things, right, that you like, or maybe there's certain concepts that you would like to incorporate that reflect that. But ultimately, you're looking for something that's very simple. One of my favorite designers, Draplin, always talks about thick lines, right? So again, avoiding it getting too detailed or complex. Sort of the thick line concept helps you keep in mind that this should be simple. And then you want to test the logo. Make them very small, make them very large, things like app icons, signage on the side of your building. Again, look at the two extremes and see if the logo still works. Throw it on your YouTube channel, throw it on your Facebook, logos and those little kind of circle places where you have to apply those, see what it looks like as you string it across a banner on your social media. Really kind of play around with the logo before you lock it in to make sure that it can apply. Because again, ultimately, and this draws us to number 5, what you're looking for is you're looking for consistency, same colors, fonts, logo, and being able to apply it in different sizes and shapes and across different platforms, internal documents, print documents, digital, and always create that consistency. So the moment that someone sees your brand or sees a message or a positioning statement or copy from that brand, it's clear and obvious that that brand, that impression belongs to you, the brand. So again, as we're moving through this and you're picking those things out, working all the way down from positioning, colors, fonts, logo, again, create a checklist and apply these elements in a website, in your social media, on email templates, maybe on a business card, maybe some physical collateral, and make sure that it all works together. And then, last but not least, document it. And again, this can be super simple. You just put some examples, probably in a slide deck, so that anybody that is working with you, and as you grow and more people are working with that brand, it's clear and obvious how they employ that brand and ways that they shouldn't. So again, last but not least, we're thinking through keeping it simple, making sure we don't get too many colors, making sure that our fonts are from Google Fonts and they're a family that are already on your computer. Make sure everything's ADA compliant. Take a look at that. Use that WebAIM contrast checker and make sure that everything's kind of working together. And then as you go and you create things, make sure that you're always consistently applying all of those things. Be adamant about it. Don't be compromising with your brand, because you'd hate to put something out there in the world that's not consistent with all those other impressions that they've encountered and not getting sort of the proper stack and the frequency, creating the trust. You want to get credit for every single one of those impressions that will ultimately bring you familiarity, trust, and then ultimately the leads that you so desperately need. Hope you enjoyed that. If this is the kind of thing that you're into, I would love for you to join us here by subscribing and like this video, and we'll see you on the next one.